Okay, welcome to another class, take two. First time we didn't record. So for you guys, it's the first time. Everyone here,
I'm gonna sleep for
it's the second time.
minutes.
Exactly. So the subject of tonight's class is how do we tackle negative character traits? How do we tackle an illness? So do we only focus on the negative, or do we? Well, you can't 100% ignore it, but how much credence do we give it? So, now in Palestine and Israeli conflict, there are certain arguments we're just not going to entertain. There's certain, if you're that stupid, like someone posted a picture of a coin that said Palestine, it was 1927, but obviously the person couldn't read Hebrew, because in Hebrew it says Aleph Yud. Aleph Yud is an abbreviation for Eretz Yisrael, right? So, if someone says stupidity, not everything you have to interact with. You have to answer. So how much weight and how much importance and how much attention do we focus on the bad? Because we all have good character, we all have bad character. We're always trying to weed out the bad and uplift the good. So the previous Rebbe in text number 1 at page 108 addresses this. Or the Rebbe quotes the previous Rebbe. He says like this: so there are two ways to heal an illness. One is to administer localized medicine. Take chicken soup. Take Tylenol. The other is the holistic approach of the entire body, to try to figure out.
He was on his way.
Okay, try to figure out what's going on and try to uplift the body. And the body, when you make it stronger, it'll help to heal itself. So just like it works that way on a physical manner, it also works that way on an emotional way. We all have weakness in character. None of us are perfect. Nobody. No. I don't know why you guys are acting so surprised.
I don't want to make you feel bad. Just keep going.
Okay. There you go. So to use Hebrew terms, in chapter 35 of Tehillim, we have Sur Mirah, turn away from evil, Va'asei Toiv, and do good. The question is, how much should we focus on the Sur Mirah, the turning away from evil, and how much do we focus on the Asei Toiv and doing good? So let's turn to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha, Yaakov has to run away from his brother Esav. If you remember from last week, Yaakov went on a clandestine SEAL Team 6 Mossad mission, put on clothing and disguise. He came in, he got the blessings. Esav wasn't too happy, and he said he's going to kill Yaakov. So Rivka, the mother, said, "I want to give your brother some time, give him some space, run away to Haran." Rivka is originally from Haran, Iraq. Hang out there with your uncle, my brother Lavan. Stay there for a while, and then Esav will calm down, and you'll come back. Now Yaakov knew, because Lavan was very, very famous for being a thief, and for being a swindler, and for being a liar. If you can imagine, they knew about him in Israel. That's how much his reputation preceded him. And this is without telephone, snail mail. That's how. So Yaakov knew what he was getting into. The question is, how do you challenge that? How do you combat it? How do you withstand it? Or what attitude should you take? So there's a good, famous, interesting Gemara or Medrash that says, how did Yaakov manage to raise? Well, Yaakov wanted to leave Lavan. As much as Yaakov was there, once Yaakov had a family, we'll see in this week's parsha, he wants to leave. Because could you imagine raising a family around Lavan, around that environment? It's not a place to raise a family. So how did Yaakov do it? He prayed for strength from God, and he kept an upbeat attitude. You see, text number 2, the Medrash says, "Ma hoyayimer." What would he say? Well, they made the text a little better. It says, what prayers did he chant? He chanted the 15 songs of ascent from this book of Psalms, from chapter 120 through 135 or 134. are the Shir Hamalos. Now, in the temple, from the courtyard to the main sanctuary, there are 15 steps. And the Levi and the Levites would every day they would sing, and they also had a whole symphony. So it was known as the 15 songs. So although obviously it was composed later by King David, but Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were tuned into a higher plane. That means the ideas and the energy that King David was channeling and putting on paper, he didn't invent those ideas. Believing in God, and for example, Psalm 121, where King David says, "From where will my help come? I lift up my eyes to the heaven. From where my help come? From God." Obviously, King David didn't invent that idea. He just put it nicely on paper. So Yaakov, we find different examples. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were able to tap into divine energies that existed always, but were only expressed later. So, for example, Avram and Yitzchak, we have a record they kept Pesach. Pesach didn't happen yet. The Jews hadn't even gone to Egypt yet. But the energy that was present on that day. So, out of all the 15 songs of ascents, which one was the most special? Number 15. Why? What's so special about number 15? You're not going to guess.
Try.
This was the retreat. Okay, go ahead, try.
I couldn't think of anything.
Okay, fine. You couldn't think of it. All right. So 15 is the number that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all lived together. Their lives overlapped. So if you look at text 3b and the figure, you'll see Avram lived 175 years. How old was Avram when Yitzchak was born? 100 years old. How old was Yitzchak when Yaakov was born? 60 years old. That puts Avram at 160 years old when Yaakov was born. How long did Avram live? 175. So there are 15 years that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Could you imagine those 15 years? You know, you got the greatest of the greats living at the same time. Because we always look at Avram, then Yitzchak, then Yaakov. But those 15 years where, you know, the three pillars, well, Maimonides called it Avram, the pillar of the world. The three greatest people of all time lived. I mean, good time to live, huh?
No, there was no electricity, no cars.
Yeah, but there was lava.
It was,
Yeah, exactly. Fresh. You ever see how they make the lava on the pan over the fire? You ever see how they make it?
no.
Yeah. So Yaakov tunes in to number 15 because there was something special about Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov living together. Okay, so what's with the 3? We see 3 is a special number. You know, the Gemara says that God gave a book of 3, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, to the people of 3, Kohanim, Leviim, Israelim, in the 3rd month. Sivan is the 3rd month. A lot of things in the Torah are 3. What's with the 3? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Well, we like the number 3. People were very, very primitive back then. They couldn't get past 3.
And you could do it on one hand.
Yeah, exactly. That was.
Yeah, but they had 5 fingers.
My Kalman is very good
4
at
fingers
is good at addition, and he memorized multiplication. So I'm trying to tell him subtraction, but it's harder for him. So I asked him. So like 10 minus something, he does this. I asked him 11 minus 2. So he's like, I don't have enough fingers. So he actually went to look at his toes. Right? Okay. So in order to understand,
Using M&M's helps.
there you go. So
when you get hungry.
we're gonna get a little historical.
Then there's a lot of subtraction.
Exactly. We're gonna get a little historical, okay? And we're gonna jump ahead. Tonight is actually a special night in the Chabad calendar. Tonight is the night of the birthday and the passing of the second Chabad Rebbe, Rab Dave Ber. He was born and passed away on the 9th of Kislev. Tonight is the night of 9th of Kislev. And he lived 54 years. And interesting that the year before he passed away, and on the 10th of Kislev, he was released from prison. So Thanksgiving is actually for us, it's going to work out. Because on the 10th of Kislev, we're thankful to God that the Rebbe was let out of prison. And it's such a special day, the entire United States
Celebrate.
is going to celebrate Yud Kislev. You see, I'm telling you. The Chabad is making the entire United States maybe they don't know it yet, but they'll know it one day. Right? So the Alter Rebbe was passed away in year 1812. Alter Rebbe was running away from Napoleon. Someone told me they're making a movie about him.
Yes.
Napoleon.
They're making a movie about Napoleon.
I think they're running out of historical characters.
Yeah, they're just redoing the same
It's
one.
interesting.
Right?
1812 overture.
So he was running away from Napoleon. He did not want to be under the French rule, and it was a very, very bitter winter. So the Alter Rebbe passes away on the 24th day of Tevis, which it's like January sometime, middle of January. Imagine Russia. I think I told you this story before. My father went with a group of men to go pray at the Alter Rebbe's grave on the 24th day of Tevis. So my father's originally from Montreal, lived in New York in his entire life. I mean, when I asked him this question, when he went, he still lived in New York. I said, so how was the cold? He said, Mordechai, it's a different level. It's a different level cold. It was freezing. Now, New York, Montreal doesn't prepare you. This was freezing. So, by the way, you know what Alter Rebbe means? Alter means old. And Mittel Rebbe, who's the birthday in your side is today, means middle.
What's the second word?
Mittler.
Middle.
Mittler. Why they call that? Because there were some Hasidim from the third Chabad Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, who were students who remembered the Alter Rebbe. So what do they call the first Rebbe? The old Rebbe. And then they call their Rebbe the Rebbe. And what do you call the Rebbe in between your Rebbe and the old Rebbe? The middle Rebbe. And the name's just stuck. Right?
So now, if somebody calls me an Alter Kaka,
I was going to say, you got two of them right here.
It's a badge of honor, right?
At least they didn't call them Larry, Moe, and Curly.
Maybe that too. So, when we're going to get into this when Rabbi Naftali Silverberg comes to Fabrein for us on Sunday, December 3rd, which everyone should strongly encourage to come. Yeah,
It's on my calendar.
Your attendance is strongly
required.
encouraged.
Believe me, he was cleaning his pistol while I was trying to
Not true.
study.
Not true.
Yes.
Wasn't
It
cleaning.
was
I was
right.
aiming.
I stand corrected. So, go ahead, Trader. Make a mistake.
There you go. So when
incentive.
the Alter Rebbe was not he wasn't taught by his parents about Chabad, about Chassidus. Well, he started Chabad. It wasn't.
He was the origin of Hasidus.
No, of Chabad Chassidus. The Baal Shem Tov was the origin of Chassidus.
Okay, let's straighten that out.
So he wasn't brought up in taught actually by instructions of the Baal Shem Tov to his parents. They told the Alter Rebbe's parents, whose name was Baruch and Verleh, he said, your son has to find Chassidus on his own. You are not to instruct him. Don't mention my name. He has to find it on his own. That's the instructions the Baal Shem Tov gave. So when the Alter Rebbe was 19, I think it was, he decided to make a life choice. Do I go to Vilna? There were two major schools, Vilna and in Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich. Vilna was famous for learning. Mezrich was famous for davening. Now, Alter Rebbe was a child prodigy, and he was a genius par excellence, and he was a genius amongst geniuses. I mean, he was something that we can't even understand. So he said, learning I know how to do a little. Can you imagine? Learning, by the way, he made a calendar. If anyone want to know how to make the Jewish calendar, open up Maimonides, the laws of the sanctifying the moon. Maimonides goes through the whole math. It's a lot of mathematics. Most people just read through it because it's complicated math. Alter Rebbe did it when he was 10. Just letting you know. He knew the whole Gemara by the time he was 13. Okay? So when he said, I know how to learn a little bit, right? His little and our little, not the same.
Yeah.
But he said, davening, I don't know. So he went to Mezrich. When he came, and we won't get into the whole story right now. So the Maggid had a son who was called Avram the Angel. Now you can imagine why they called him that, because he was more up there and he was down there. He was totally not concerned with.
Thought he had wings.
It could be Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Yeah. He was totally not concerned with material world. So they had a.
Clean underwear,
So they had a study arrangement. The Alter Rebbe was an expert in Gemara and Halacha, and Avram the Malach, Avram the Angel, was an expert in Kabbalah and Chassidus. So one would teach one Halacha, and one would teach one Chassidus. Now the Alter Rebbe wanted to learn Chassidus, and Avram the Malach was a little bit aloof, like a abstract. So, and I think the order was 3 hours this one, 3 hours that one, back and forth. So the Alter Rebbe would go, he would turn the clock back. This way he would get more time. Anyway.
And they didn't figure that one out.
He didn't figure it out. Avram the Malach did it because he was now at that time. Exactly. In at that time there was an event called the 7 Years' War. 7 Years' War was between Austria and Prussia, later to be called Germany. And it was a big war and it had effects. I mean, the Indian American War was a result of it. It was a big deal. I mean, now you hear of Austria, you're thinking, but Austria in the 1700s was, Austrian Empire until World War I. So what happened was over there. Without getting into all the details, and you could wiki it and Google it, and I might mess up some of the details. But what happened was the Prussian army outnumbered the Austrian army by like 2-1, and the Austrian army had built a fortress, and the Prussian army took it back, and they met on in the field of battle. Everyone made a big deal. Why? Because the Austrian king, I can't remember his name. It wasn't Zalman Goldstein, so I don't remember his name.
It was His Majesty.
His Majesty, exactly. He did a move called the oblique attack. So, this means, in the olden days, without communication, without walkie-talkies, they said divide up the armies into groups of 3, and like in basketball, half court, 3 on 3, right? And basically you would shoot the muskets and cannons until one side gave up. So the Austrian king didn't have enough people to go head on. So what did he do? He snuck around to the left flank. He left some people to the right flank. And there, the Prussians thought, and they didn't really charge, and they started retreating. So the Austrians thought, they're coming from the right. So they moved guys over to the right. And then they started retreating. So, I see they're afraid. In the meantime, the Austrians moved most of their men, the left flank, and totally overwhelmed. Now, the Prussian, I think it was the prince, crown prince, whatever it was, he totally refused to believe it. So, although he was getting messages from that side that we need help. What happened was, everyone considered it was a brilliant move, and the Austrians were able to beat the Prussians. If you Google the oblique attack, 7 Years' War, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I think this idea is still studied in West Point and in other military academies. I once heard a story, by the way, as a side, nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, because the story just popped into my head. There's once a Jew, I don't know if he was in West Point, I don't know exactly where he was in school, but he noticed that they study historical battles, but they never study Jewish historical battles. Always different.
Yeah, I noticed too.
You know the story? So the guy went over to the professor and said, "How come there's so many stories in Jewish history, and they're brilliant victories? How come you don't study those?" He said, "Because Jewish victories in battle are not natural. They don't make sense. There's no reason that the Jews should have won. Hanukkah's coming up. That's not a. Obviously, they had to fight, and there was a avenue, a physical conduit to win. But according to all logic and rules of nature, the Jews should have lost easy, quickly. It shouldn't have been a chance. So how are we supposed to teach that? You can't teach.
You can't teach miracles.
You can't teach miracles." Good answer. Good answer. So the Baal Shem Tov said. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because look at text number 4. Baal Shem Tov taught us that everything we experience, everything we learn and we see, can be used as a lesson in the service of Hashem. There's actually a story. How am I doing on time? Okay. There's actually a story that the Baal Shem Tov taught his students this, that everything you see can be a lesson in the service of Hashem. And one time it was in the winter, and the Baal Shem Tov and his students were walking past the pond, and the pond had frozen over. And someone went and carved a massive, giant cross into the ice. So the students went to this Baal Shem Tov and said, "How could this be used in the service of God?" Baal Shem Tov said, good question. Baal Shem Tov said, water, the Torah is compared to water. The water is life, Torah is life. But when your service of God becomes cold and indifferent and monotonous and robotic, then it could even be used for something against Judaism. Good answer. Right? So Baal Shem Tov was a strong believer in this. It's called Hashgacha Pratis. Hashgacha Pratis means divine providence, that everything you see is because God ordained it to be so, that God wants you to see, witness, and hear. Okay? So now this whole thing with the oblique attack, it was in all the papers. I mean, everyone, even if the Jews didn't read the papers, but everyone was talking about it. So it came to Mezrich. So the Alter Rebbe is telling this to his grandson. This is 2 weeks before he passes away, about something he heard from Avram the Malach 50 years earlier. So Avram the Malach didn't care about the military. He said, "Oh, we now have a lesson in the service of God." What's the lesson in the service of God? So let's look at text number 5. The next following texts are going to be one leading into the other. It basically breaks up the point into, and he says, the way the battle used to happen was it used to be divided into 3. Right, the one goes at one. Everyone battles their own. The center takes the center. The forward takes the forward. The guard takes the guard. Right, you got to do a sports analogy. Right, basketball. So text number 6.
That wasn't hockey.
No, because in hockey everyone's moving around.
Oh.
I can use a good hockey game right now.
Okay, go sports.
Yeah. Now text number 6. So this is from BritishBattles.com. In the battle, the Austrian left was commanded by an Hungarian Hussar General Nataste. I think all the generals all were called Hussars, and he watched with horror as the Prussian camp appeared behind. Maybe I switched the Prussians and the Austrians.
Did he come from Indiana?
Hoosiers. Oh yeah, there you go. First I took me as he said, yeah. And Prince Charles was unconvinced and slow to attack. In any case, the Austrian line was so long, I switched around. Sorry, it was the Austrians that outnumbered the Prussians. Sorry, and it took a better time. By that time, it was too late. Now, it should be said that the Prussians were able to pull off this move. Because perfect circumstances. They had to go around the hill. They went through a forest. It was at night, and they weren't. It wasn't so much the idea of the move; it was the fact that they were able to pull it off. So now let's go to 7a. And he said. So he says Friedrich succeeded, page 113. Succeeded because he brilliantly arrayed all 3 of his divisions against a single division. The tactic is called atakirin. In this tactic, all three divisions surround and engage a single division of the enemy and overpower it. So subsequently, they attack the enemy's second or third division. So now, you have here, how many bad characters? You don't have to answer. I'll answer for you. How many bad character traits do you have? Like I said, I'll answer for you, right? Most people don't just have one. Right? Just like you have more than one good character, we have certain things. So you wake up one morning and say, all right, today, I'm going to be a tzaddik. I'm not going to do any Averis. I'm going to do everything right. No lashon hara, no jealousy, no greed, no... Today, I'm a tzaddik.
And you're going back to sleep before you even get to your morning prayers.
Right.
Boom.
Right, God, and so far I'm doing good. Haven't gotten out of bed yet, but give me the strength, right? So, many times, not many times, all times, it fails. Why does that fail? You wake up inspired and you want to be a better person, and you say, and you recognize that sometimes you can be conceited, sometimes you can be greedy, sometimes you can be short-tempered, sometimes you can be whatever, fill in the blank, and it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? No?
Because you're not internalizing it.
Give me a very practical answer. Give me a war answer.
A war answer.
I'll give you a
You
hint.
haven't trained for it.
Or you can't fight war on multiple fronts at the same time. Can't.
Yeah, true. It's very hard.
Right? What? People are worried that Hezbollah is going to open up a front in the north, and the Palestinian Authority is going to open up, a front in the West Bank, and then the Houthis, right? They're trying to overwhelm the Israelis. That's why the Americans had to bring in the aircraft carrier. You think the aircraft carrier wasn't there, and there wouldn't be more action? There would be more action. Look, they tried it in 48, they tried it in 67, they tried it in 73 to overwhelm the Israelis. So too, we have this part of us that's holy. And we have our enemies, right? Our bad character traits. And we say, okay, we're going to wipe out the Lebanese, the Syrians, the Jordanians, the Egypt. You can't. You can't. So what do? You pick on one enemy and you fight him. You fight that one enemy. You say, today I'm gonna give more tzedakah than I'm accustomed. Or today I'm not gonna speak lashon hara. I might not be perfect. I might not do other things. But once I conquer not speaking gossip, or once I conquer not whatever it is, then I can move on to another. It's a lot more stable. We find in the Torah, Hashem says, I'm going to have you go into the land, and I'm not going to let you conquer the entire land at the same time, all at one time. Why? Because the land is going to be desolate, and it's going to be overrun by animals or by vegetation. It's going to be worse for you. I'll have you conquer the land slowly. Just like anything else. When you learn something, some people come to shul once a year, for example, and they're frustrated. We're going too fast. I don't understand anything that's going on. Yeah, because you come on the day where davening is the longest, and we got a whole thick book to finish. Yeah, we're going fast, because otherwise, Rosh Hashanah would be a week long. Right?
They haven't heard you daven Marav in a hurry.
What's Yom Kippur? Fastest Marav in the West. Right? So that Avram the Malach taught us a powerful lesson from this thing. The lesson is you fight the Yetzer Hara on one flank, on one idea. Today, so the lesson is so let's say, for example, you didn't put on phone, whatever, for example, right? Or today you didn't say Shema. So tomorrow, I'm not going to do the whole siddur. I'm not going to be perfect, but tomorrow I'm saying Shema. Or tomorrow I'm putting on the phone. Or tomorrow you fight in the Yetzer Hara. Because what does the Yetzer Hara want? Your evil inclination doesn't want you to be in control of yourself. Because the moment you're in control of yourself, you can direct your abilities to doing good things. Irresponsible action comes because you're not in control of yourself. Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to be in control of yourself. because the Yetzer Hara is like the impulse buys on the supermarket aisle. Doesn't want you to think. This week, telling Michael J. State Farm raised my rates. For no, just I'm ready to sign the premium, whatever. So I called Geico. And the Geico said, "Yeah, we'll batch it. Oh, but no, only you have to have A, B, and C." I said, "No, I don't want that." Okay, but if you're not okay, so when can I take you take your credit card? They keep talking. I said, no, you're not getting my credit card. No, because no, they don't want you to think. The Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to think. So what do you? So, but the Yetzer Hara, like they call him a wise old king, is very, very experienced. You know, you're gonna go to a salesman and try to outsmart him.
Let him outsmart him, so.
You know what I'm saying? But sometimes, like, something has happened. Is the phone? Is it still recording?
Still recording.
Okay, I heard something. There was someone once asked the Rebbe, these guys who are missionaries. What do? They go around trying to convince Jews about the fallacy of the Torah and all that. The Rebbe said, don't get into conversation with these guys. These guys are trained. They're trained to debate. So unless you're a professional, so why? Because they might twist you around.
They'll lead you into a trap.
Exactly. So don't your mission today is not to make the world a better place, cure cancer, AIDS, world hunger, peace. I don't know. I forget. Save the elephants, the whales, the turtles.
Turkeys.
Bad way for turkeys.
Eliminate inflation. That's
Eliminate inflation, right?
Well, things are going down. It's very, very slow.
But
Going down.
but the idea is, today, I'm gonna do fill in the blank. That's how you do it. And let's look what the Alter Rebbe says in text 7b. Alter Rebbe says like this, page 114. Here you go. The lesson that the holy Rav Avram derived from this: in the service of Hashem, we must battle our internal negative urges, and for Hashem enables all unholiness to counter holiness. Right? Hashem, we learned this in Tanya, that the world is in a perfect balance, and we have positive traits such as love, reverence, and compassion, and beautification, to name a few, and then we have the attraction for unholy pleasures. So one would think that the way to restrain and even transform these unholy forces is to fight fire with fire. Instead of having love for chocolate cake, love for God. Arousing our love for holiness subdues our passion for inappropriate pleasures. Similarly, reverence for sanctity expels inappropriate fear. This is like a conventional war, which each division battles the enemy's corresponding division. That's modern. And it makes sense, because in a regular war, if you're stronger, and bring it on. So obviously godliness and holiness is better than not holiness. I mean, does chocolate cake really measure up to putting on tefillin? No.
No, but chocolate cake tastes good.
Tastes good. And tefillin are GoPros.
That's right.
Yeah.
People laugh at us.
But we're controlling the world, right? With our lasers.
They say.
With our lasers.
With our laser satellites.
Exactly. So the Alter Rebbe continues. As a rule, sacred traits are more potent, as light is superior. So is holiness superior to holiness. So light, and the Alter Rebbe many times in Chassidus always gives this idea. Why is all our phones going off at the same time?
Stanley's on his way.
All right, everybody, Stanley's on his way. Let's take out the trumpets, the band. So light, many times in Chassidus and Kabbalah, light is used as a metaphor for good, and bad is used as a metaphor with darkness. And just like there is no friction between light and darkness, light automatically dispels darkness. So too, if you introduce godliness to fight impurity, you're going to be victorious. The problem is, and there's a drawback. It's not so simple, because the fact, I once heard from a historian, many Jews make the mistake of thinking that Jewish history exists in a vacuum. No, Jewish history exists in world history, and what happened in world history affected the Jews as well. It played an influence. So that means, for example, in next week's Parsha, we're going to find the story that Yaakov is fighting with a guy, and he injures him. He has a problem with his hip, a hip replacement. Yaakov was the first one to have hip replacement. He didn't read it, no?
That was a sciatic.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Tomato.
That's
Yeah. But it says It says, but what happened? Avram. It's a Medrash Kabbalah tells us this guy represented impurity. Esav represented Esav. Yada yada yada. So what happens when Yaakov Yaakov won. But what happens when Yaakov wrestles him and deals with him? Yaakov gets dirty. So he says there are some drawbacks. Text 9a. He says the truth is that this method sometimes is insufficient. At times, unholy rides with desperate intensity. This consistent with the passage, our kingdom will ultimately be mightier than the other one. So, going back to sports, the games aren't played on paper. War is not fought on paper. So you're right that the stronger team, the better team should always win. And the stronger, bigger army, like in this case, the Austrian army, should win. But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes when you are so involved in turning around and uplifting the bad, you might lose. And that's number one. Two drawbacks. You see in text 9b. He says that Hillel Paritcher was a chassid of the Mittel Rebbe and of the Tzemach Tzedek. He said the two drawbacks. Number one, the first that the winning side always suffers losses. I mean, when you're dealing with your negative character, you're going to be affected negatively. Also, when you're so focused on what's wrong. The second is that there might be warriors and leaders amongst the survivors who flee the battlefield, and what time they're going to come back. Tie us into Israel. Yeah? Hamas is losing. They want to ceasefire. Why do they ceasefire? Yeah, they ran to southern Gaza. Ceasefire, they're going to come back. Right?
Regroup and then return.
So the same thing is, he continues in 9c, the Reb Hillel Paritcher continues in 9c. The same is true when fighting our bad character. The traditional Jewish ethics books derided the negative character, Musar, traits, and explain why we must get rid of them. For example, they describe the decadence of arrogance and haughtiness, examining each of these traits in detail to distance ourselves from them. The first is that the contemplating our consuming in shame for honor and privilege. The second is that we cannot the problem is like this. When we talk about haughtiness, inadvertently what's going to happen, we're going to get a little arrogance because you're so focused on that arrogance. Number two, no matter how hard you try, the fact of the matter is you're not getting rid of 100% your negative character. You could refine it, you could minimize it, but it's not, unless you're perfect, unless you're Moshe Rabbeinu,
It's always going to be in the background.
it's always going to be in the background. So don't give it credence. That means if you're always occupied with doing good, mathematically, you don't have time to mess around. But when you're very busy, well, you don't find yourself thinking about nonsense. When does nonsense pop into your head? When you have time. When you're very, very busy. I think I told a story once. When I was a kid, we were on a boating trip. I was 12 years old. I wore glasses. And we were canoeing. It was like a small waterfall, going in and out, jumping in and out. And my eyesight was pretty bad, 4 at the time. And after I got into the boat, I couldn't find my glasses. I was having so much fun, I forgot I couldn't see well. It was only later, when everything calmed down, I realized, hey, can't find. My father couldn't understand. What do you mean? He had to pay for the new ones. What do you mean you forgot your glasses? You fell off. You didn't pick them up right away. I said, I didn't realize. I mean, when you're so busy, when you're so occupied, like when you're very busy sometimes, at the end of the day, you say, hey, I didn't need anything today.
Yeah, it never happens.
Never happens, huh? When you work in the same room as a refrigerator, it's a problem.
That's right.
Right? Meaning, when you're so busy, you don't have time for shtus, for nonsense. Sometimes you're so busy, you don't have. And by the way, it works in the negative also. Sometimes a person's overcome by grief. They don't eat. They don't want to eat. They don't have no appetite, right? Or also when a person's very happy, right? This kid's wedding, right? They're dancing and they forgot. At the end of the day, you're so busy with the makeup and the band and everything else, I didn't even get a chance to eat. So, yes, Yes, you have. There you go. I remember. Yes, everyone has negative characters. So you can focus on your negative character and say, yeah, I'm a piece of garbage, and I'm a this, and I'm a that, and you can ride yourself down. But the truth of the matter is, are you really going to get rid of your character? Probably not. And you're so consumed by the negative character, you kind of personify it. But if you focus on doing good, and you focus on the asay toiv, then automatically you don't have time to do that. If you're in shul, the Rebbe once spoke about this by Fabregan. The fact that a person who wasn't raised religious, wasn't raised going to shul, on Saturday morning could do anything else. He gave an example. Did he say go to a baseball game or a football game? I can't remember exactly the example that Rebbe said. He can go anywhere else, but the fact that he comes to shul, you gotta give the guy credit. He could be doing something else, but instead he's in shul. He got there and he doesn't know exactly and everything else, but the guy's in shul. Automatically, what is he not doing? He's not eating chassid reif, and he's not desecrating Shabbos somewhere else. Is it better to go to the theater, or is it better to go to shul? Is that even a question?
Depends on what's playing.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we have two screens here. We have the what do you call the early movie?
The matinee.
Matinee, right? Yeah, exactly. Then we have the main show, whatever it's called. So the Alter Rebbe says, text number 10. He says, if you worry about your grave sin, God forbid, set aside opportune times when the mind is calm to reflect upon the greatness of God, from whom you sin. That means don't think about how bad you are. Think about how great God is and what you could do for Him. When you think about, the Alter Rebbe talks about this in Tanya in length, and we're going to get into it. Why don't we take advantage of an opportunity to do a mitzvah? Because we don't appreciate the value of the action. It's like you go to a kid for Hanukkah Yelt, right? You want a chocolate, $100 bill. Kid's going to take the chocolate because he doesn't appreciate the value.
Depends on the age of the kid.
No, I mean the kid, right? Right, or a shiny nickel, or a crumpled up $100 bill, right?
They had something on television where they win big money, and then at the end of the show, they ask little 4-year-old kid, would you rather have the money or the stuffed bunny? And the kid will invariably go for the stuffed bunny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw that show.
I
was
saw
last
it
year.
once, and I said, this is ridiculous.
So
What's the money stuffed with?
money. But we're like that kid. When we don't take an opportunity to do a mitzvah, we're like that kid. And we're learning about it. We're learning about it in Tanya. So when the soul comes, it's just like you look at that kid as a kid's an idiot. I mean, they're not really an idiot because nobody does know, but the truth is we do know. So when the soul leaves the body afterwards, we look at ourselves. We look at the kid. You took the money, really? Like, how stupid can you be? You had the opportunity to take this money, and instead, so when we think about how great God is. I mean, God, the Creator, and He created the world. Why? Because He wanted the Jews to do a mitzvah, and He's asking me, not anyone else. He's asking me, because the mitzvah, the way you do a mitzvah, is different from everyone else. God is not satisfied that I put on tefillin, or that I said Shema, no. He wants you and you and you and you, everyone, to do the mitzvah. Because if you don't do the mitzvah, someone is lacking God's ultimate plan. They think to yourself, well, hey, I'm important. Not because I'm important I'm important. I'm important because God made me important. My importance stems from the Creator made me important. So now, automatically, you're generated and motivated to do good. So the same thing is, so you have an impulse. So you have an impulse to do something bad, right? So what do? You focus your energy. Says, I'm gonna choose to do something good. Forget about everything else. Right now, instead of doing this, I'm gonna do this. Let's not get overwhelmed here. I could do a bad deed. I could make a choice. The kosher chicken is more expensive than a not kosher chicken. But I'm gonna do this.
I'm not buying either one.
Yeah.
Is that true?
What?
kosher chicken is more expensive than a regular chicken?
Yeah, Jewish. You don't know the Jewish chickens are more expensive?
I hate to tell you, the kosher turkeys are even worse.
Really? Yeah.
Do you know how much a kosher turkey cost in
were in
Publix last year?
in Aroma.
Almost $100.
We were in Aroma this week, and they had one turkey there for $94, and it wasn't all that big.
Wow. And by the way, I'm not a big turkey fan.
I like turkey better than chicken.
No, not me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, it was
I like
like, you've gotta be kidding me.
You should know.
Something, I wasn't looking for something like that.
You know, I grew up. We didn't have.
almost vegetarian.
I got two also, they were on sale.
When I grew up, we didn't
had
have
asked
turkey
for 'em.
on Thanksgiving.
They
Well,
were
the
on
shtick.
shelf.
No, they were on the
Cindy
shelf. I was
does.
just-
It's a shtick.
Yeah.
Why do you have to have turkey? The Rebbe spoke about how great it is that in the United States they have this concept of giving thanks. He said it's a wonderful idea that in the United States is the idea of giving thanks. But the idea you have to have turkey to be thankful.
Cindy doesn't
Or
do Thanksgiving.
Imagine you showed up for a Shabbos meal and he came with cookies. And I said, cookies? Where's turkey? I mean, what kind of ludicrous is?
Well, it's a cookie shaped like a
You're
turkey.
expecting cookies this
There was
week?
Can I put in a special order?
Yes, you
There was,
may.
a movie, there was a movie called Avalon, and there's one scene where one of the uncles comes in, and supposedly he was played by Lou Jacoby, the
Are
uncle.
you Jewish?
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I ought to go.
All right, so we'll get to that
We'll get
afterwards.
this
Anyway, so the we got a meeting in 5 minutes. So the Alter Rebbe says in text number 11, the way to do it is to arouse all the positive urges and surround that inappropriate. Channel your entire being against that inappropriate impulse and defeat it. It is the Atakiran method. We learned the oblique attack. Focus all your energy on one side, and then once you conquer that negative trait, you work on to the next thing. And now we can understand what Yaakov is doing. Going back to Yaakov, why we're so focused on 3, right? Because you have Avram, who we learned is kindness. Yitzchak, we focused on this last week, right? Yitzchak is discipline. Yaakov is the balance. And why was Yaakov so focused on the 15th song, right? Yaakov, the overlapping years, the 15 overlapping years, because Yaakov was going to Lavan. Lavan represents the outside world. If there's any proof that the outside world is full of garbage, it's now. When you're looking at the TV and they're telling you, thinking, really? Israel is committing genocide? Really? That these kind of attacks are justified? I mean, we have to have such a conversation. That the words they're using, that we're going to exchange hostages for hostages. What hostages? The people that are in Israeli prisons, they're criminals.
They were convicted in the court of law.
In a court of law of killing people. The people on October 7th, what were they guilty of? Being Jews. And the verbiage being used. And we got to put up with that. Because everyone in the Torah is a template. Who's the epitome? Who is the template of liar? Of a farce? Of saying one thing and doing the other thing? Lavan. Yaakov worked for Lavan. You know how many times Lavan changed his salary? And unilaterally, by the way.
How many days was he there?
He was there for 20 years. No, but
Yeah, but that's how many times he changed.
no, but he lied to him unilaterally. He said, no, I didn't mean this, I meant that. It wasn't an agreement. It wasn't like he got a raise. When he saw Yaakov was doing well, he was getting all his flocks were having white sheep or brown sheep or spotted sheep, whatever. Oh no, I meant this one, I meant that one. 100 times. Lavan is the prototype of swindler, cheater. You can't believe a word the guy says. Everything is about himself, only to advance his self-interest.
It sort of equates to a lot of people today.
So how do you fight that? So Yaakov had to channel Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov together. Not just Avraham, not just Yitzchak, and not just himself. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. To survive in this exile, the Rebbe says, text number 12, we too require the 15 songs of ascent that correspond to the 15 years the patriarchs were living simultaneously. That is because the 3 patriarchs represent the 3 cardinal sacred traits: love, ava, chesed tzari, gvura, reverence, and tiferes, compassion. Well, we simultaneously tap into all these 3 patriarchs. When the Yetzer Hara comes and says to do an Aveir, and you say, do you know who I am? I'm the child of Avraham Yitzchak and Yaakov. The entire world was created for me to do a mitzvah. And we see a reference in the Parshat. Avram dug wells. What happened? They were stuffed, right? Yitzchak dug wells. They weren't stuffed, but they were blocked. In this week's Parsha, the well, Yaakov comes to a well and it's covered by a stone, because this reference we're saying before, if you deal too much with the negatives, it could have negative repercussions. Avram's too much chesed. The guy had Yishmael. Remember that we spoke about it last week. So the wells were stuffed. Yitzchak's discipline was tempered by Avram's kindness, so it was better, but it was blocked. It wasn't stuffed. It was blocked. The big stone. Yaakov comes and reveals that well. So everything. So the stories that we have in the Torah, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, those aren't just nice stories. Yaakov was a very strong guy. He was able to pick the rock up that no one else was able to. He needed a bunch of guys to do it. No, I mean, they're cool stories. But Lavan is a prototype. Lavan is a template. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are prototypes. We all have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in us. We all have Lavan inside all of us. So how do we block the Lavan? Stop fighting with Lavan so much. You fight with Lavan, you become Lavan. Focus on what you can do. I forget what you can't do. Focus on what you could do. We'll end up with the story. It's a very, very powerful story. Mendel Futterfass, the famous mashpia, was in Russia. He came in one day early on Yom Kippur, and he saw Bachrim were preparing for Yom Kippur. So he asked the boys, he said, "What's the avodah?" Hey, don't tell me. He said, "What's the avodah? What's the service of God on Yom Kippur?" So he said, "You repent from sin." So Mendel Futterfass says, "What? On Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, all you're going to do is think about sinning? That's what you're going to do on Yom Kippur?" No, that's not Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, you think about how great God is. And you think about your relationship. And automatically you feel bad for what you did. That's what it is. Stop focusing on what you haven't done until this point. Or how you're not as good a Jew. Or how you can't possibly do all the things in Shulchan Aruch. Stop it. No one's perfect. You're going to focus on, tonight, before I go to sleep, I'm saying Shema. One thing. Whatever it is. One thing. And you can channel this into many different behaviors also. Not just Jewish. Everything else. It's a saving. Right? How come people don't save? Oh, put away money today. A little money today. A little money tomorrow. The way to build good character is one step at a time. Key points, guys. The traditional battle in the armies was 3 divisions. And each one goes head on. During the 7-year war, Friedrich of Prussia defeated a much larger army by attacking its left flank, and then attacked the remaining divisions and prevailed. Everything is a lesson the Baal Shem Tov tells us in the service of a God. When we're infatuated by something inappropriate, the traditional method was Musar told us you have to battle that desire, and with love for God. The stronger, holier desire displaces the inappropriate one. This is suitable method, but sometimes you might lose. It says even in defeat, it can extract a heavy price from the victor. Look what happened to Britain after World War II. Britain was destroyed. I mean, they won the war, but the economy was destroyed. The whole country was destroyed. You needed the United States to. The better method is to simultaneously arouse all 3 traits: love, fear, and compassion for our souls. This way, when you're so focused on good, the inappropriateness automatically falls away. Good stuff. All right, have a happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. Pace yourself.
What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Don't eat too much.
And don't
worry about it.
Right. Stop. Take everybody.
Yeah. The square is stopped.
Yeah.
Right?
Where?
Yeah, it's stopped.
It's still on.